From the childhood there was a desire to make films. So in the sense that I was quite I used to draw a lot, since maybe colors and sketches and that sort of a thing, or pencil drawings. Uh, and the earlier days I was interested in film posters, So I would look at film posters and notice it, or the way it is written, the font of it, or the way posters are being made. In the childhood there was a particular, say, an attraction towards the visual, or something, attraction toward colors and forms. But I think a serious sort of thing came maybe when I was studying in my college days. In my college, I was studying in Kerala College, Thrissur. So Thrissur has a good film culture. So there used to be film societies which would screen films once or twice a month, and I would go there. And so it was the first time that I would go and see different kinds of cinema, world cinema, experimental films. So that really opened up my eyes. It was like completely unlike the other films which I had seen. In particular, I remember seeing Buñuel's Unche Andalou, the Andalusian dog. So it was a mind-blowing film. I was quite impressed by it. And to whomsoever I would talk about the film, I would talk about the story about the film, and about what visual impact it had created, that sort of thing. And in college, when I was studying, there was a film club which made a short film. So I was part of it in the sense that I was the assistant art director in that project. So I helped them out with this thing. So that made me observe it much more at a closer level, like this is what filmmaking is about. I couldn't be part of the core team because there were too many people, but it was fun being part of the project and things like that. But I had decided previously that I wanted to become a filmmaker. So college maybe catalyzed it in the way. In the college, in the sense that the ambience which college creates in terms of film societies, or film clubs, and also certain friends which I had at that time. There were certain activists, or certain intellectuals, certain film critics in Thrissur. So they would come to the college and they would screen films and have, maybe it might be a film on the it might be a film on the Adirpalli issue which was going on at that time, something like, or it might be about Anand Padwardhan's films, or it might be an ecological film festival which they had organized. So these gradually made me take a much more serious look at cinema. So after college, I made a short film with my friends together. I had rented a camera from my friend and tried to make it with my friends as actors. It was a 2-minute film. Then after 1 year again I made a documentary. I made a documentary on Kandal Pokkudan. So that was a pretty nice experience, because Pokkudan Chetan was like a childhood hero to me. Kandal Pokkudan is an ecological activist. So he had at that time planted about more than 1 lakh mangroves, the coast of Kannur, and he was. So I had read about him in my in Reader's Digest. There used to be an article about heroes for today. So it portrayed a different heroes, like ordinary people becoming heroes, how they had become heroes, and that sort of a thing. So I read this. I had read it long time back in college again. When I was studying for MA, I saw his book was recently published. Kandal Kaadukkalkidayil Ente Jeevitham, My Story Among the Mangrove Trees. So I found it very interesting because he was basically a Marxist, and then but he was very disillusioned with Marxism in Kerala, And one day one day when he was sitting at home, he noticed that children, while going to the school, their umbrella just flies away because of the wind. So he decided to make a solution for that, and then he started planting mangroves, so that it, but then it started as a passion, and later on he started collecting mangroves, planting them, doing much more study about it, and propagating mangrove conservation. Only when in India, when tsunami came about, people realized the effect of mangroves, or this thing. So he died recently, Pukkudan Chetan. So this Kandal Pookkattan was my first documentary. That was also it was like a passport for me to get into FTI. So I showed them for the first time when I applied. It wasn't. I couldn't pass the interview test. So the second time I had this documentary film with me. I showed it to them. They were quite impressed with the film. For half an hour, we had a discussion on Kerala politics, ecology, and all these things. And then it was like a passport for me to FTI. I could get into FTI, and so that was the way it came about. Kaul was in Amsterdam at that time. So he had, after a long period of time, he's coming to India to teach in FTI. So I think maybe about 10 years or so. After a gap of that, he's coming to teach for us. And that was a master workshop for us. And that changed everything. In the sense that it was like, it was as if in 3 years, whatever I had learned, I relearned it again in the 1 month I had with him. It was a beautiful experience. It was as if an inner eye had opened. We tried to see cinema with new eyes and new ears. So films began to speak a new language to us, and also there was a catalyst in each one of us to discover our own cinema, our own independent cinema. So Manish never compelled us to make this kind of film or that kind of. So he was what he was trying to say was that he was trying for us to find our own voice, find our own unique self, or unique way of filmmaking. So and it was a beautiful workshop in the sense that we would begin in the morning. And we would shoot. All of us had digital cameras, so we would go out and shoot something, and later in the day we would come and we would show the rushes. And there will be discussions about that, and it would go on. And Madisa was a very interesting conversationalist. So he would start from Dhrupad music, which is his favorite, to Cezanne paintings, to Indian philosophy, and then jump to Western philosophy, Nietzsche. And whatever projects we had, he would discuss it in detail, very much curious. And it was I think all of us, there were 9 students, direction students, and all of us enjoyed it a lot. It was a wonderful experience for all of us. See, the idea of the film began when I saw this performance by Kapila, Shurpanakangam Koodiyattam. So it was a small stage in Thrissur, and there were hardly any people. There were very few people to attend it. But the performance was a terrific performance. She was playing the role of Shurpanaka, the beautiful avatar of Shurpanaka called Lalita. And Lalita is pleading with Rama to accept her love. It was like I haven't seen such a wonderful piece of acting before. It was such a beauty to see Kapila on stage. The way she would enact Tribhavam, like shifting from Sringara to Raudra. It's very beautiful, and the dance of jealousy which she does after that. And the atmosphere also was like that, since that you have these Koodiyattam is performed in this in the light of lamps. So you have this very ancient, mythical, mysterious atmosphere that is being created, and it's as if you are transported to a completely different world, a world of mythology, as if you are transported to centuries back. And the passion of Kapila, the passion of Shurpanaka, it's just beautiful. What happened was that at that time even blood was coming through her nostrils, when she was doing the dance. So we couldn't actually identify whether it was real or it was part of performance or had something happened to her. So it was a very terrifying sort of a thing. So that performance really moved me. So I thought that I should really make a film on Koodiyattam. But and I've been this involved a lot of research in the sense that I've been following Kapila and the Ammanur school of Koodiyattam, which is associated Kapila and her troupe, and Venuji. So their performances I've been following for quite a number of years, like the major performances, and also whatever books there were available on the subject. I tried to get it and I read it, and there were discussions with Koodiyattam scholars regarding this. But Kapila The principal shooting was for 1 month. Kapila was very free with us in the sense that she gave us that particular freedom. She knows that it is a particular art form, and she was the beginning a bit wary whether we would be able to do justice to her. But after a few days, our chemistry is matched. And it was also a wonderful process. The shooting. It was like we would decide like one day let's go to Wayanad and shoot this thing, or the next day we would be shooting back in Irinjalakuda, and so it was a very flexible sort of a shoot. There was no time pressure or anything like that, or any pressure to deliver on anyone. So the cameraman would be watching the rain, and the cameraman would be silently shooting the film. Or Kapila, it's basically on Kapila's, like if Kapila feels like she needs a performance today, we will shoot the performance. Or otherwise, maybe we would go to see some old koodiyattam acharyas or have a talk with them, and shoot that. And so we were collecting material for that. So 1 month involved this whole process of shooting this thing. And then we made a small rough cut of this film, a small, say it was 30 minutes, but the pace was not correct. It was a bit, it was like a late. We couldn't actually figure it out what was going wrong, and I didn't want any interviews in my film. So that made it all the more difficult, because otherwise, if you had an interview, you could actually make a film, but without an interview to sustain a film for a long time, it's very difficult. So then we were trying other methods too. Because I was very particular about that, because I felt that the essence of koodiyattam is communicating with gestures, with mudras, with facial expression, with sattvic bhavas. So that is the essence which we are trying to capture. So in cinema, if I use words, it would be completely contrary to the intentions of koodiyattam or to the intentions of cinema. So then we try to do it without words, and try to translate it in a cinematic language using images and sounds, creating a particular temporality. So working with Kapila was quite nice. In the sense that she was completely involved in the project, very much, very dedicated. She was a wonderful actress, performer. At the same time, she also took care of the costumes, or the art direction and that. So she would her own suggestion, and which was quite wonderful. For instance, for the lighting scheme, we didn't want to use any artificial lights for the koodiyattam performance. So then we had a discussion with Kapila and Venuji regarding how we can actually go about with the lighting scheme, and they gave us wonderful suggestions. And incorporating that, Manish framed the camera, using natural lights, using very natural lights to create that whole ambience of koodiyattam. And after some days, it was for Kapila, it was like we were part of her family, because they would be shooting somewhere, and we didn't try to impinge on her privacy or anything like that. We were always at a distance, but at the same time very close with her. The camera would be at a distance, but so she gradually forgot the presence of camera. So which made it much more easier for us, in the final film when you see that. And also regarding the performances, also Kapila was a perfectionist, and I was even more perfectionist than her, because even for some performances, what happened was that rain would fall, and we couldn't. That's like a performance to stage. It would cost us about 25,000. With all the artists and things like. There would be 3 cameras set up, all the sound stages and the expenses which are required. Sometimes the rain would come and we won't be able to use the material. Or sometimes what happens is at the correct moment when they are giving that expression, the camera would be stuck. So a lot of times we had to reshoot in that way. And this thing, what happened was that for a single performance, we would be shooting with 3 cameras. So it generated a lot of rushes. We had 1 TB, 2 TB of rushes. And when the next process after the shooting, the editing stage, it was very tough for us, because we need to see each and every frame and try to pick up that correct moment from that. And there were lots of rushes. So it was a very difficult task for the editor and for me also. So and then after making the first cut, then we saw that we need to have a little bit more of the shooting, and would again go for the shoot, and then again shoot something, and then make another cut, then again something might be missing there, then again. So this went on for quite some time, and it's also I greatly appreciate Manish in the whole process. Manish is my cameraman. So Manish, what he does is that he's a magician, you know, with a slight change of angle or a slight change of light, you know, he could create a particular resonance in the frame or create a particular magic in the frame. You know. He won't be using much of artificial lights or much of anything, you know, and we were actually shooting very silently, we were just very patiently, just seeing that if something works, if it doesn't work, then, and there was no rush at anything. You know. So it was just like the spirit of koodiyattam or the mood of koodiyattam. And also with the sound also, we had a very sync sound sort of thing. Most of the performances were shot in sync sound. So the sound recordist Mijit would go and collect all the mics which are available in the town, 5 mics or 6 mics. He would set it up, you know, and there would be a mixer which you would get, and then we would get that proper sort of a mix. After the edit, so the editing took us a lot of time, as I said earlier, and to get the rhythm of the edit. So once the edit was locked, next began the sound processing. So Godly did the sound design for this film, Godly Koshi. This was also quite difficult. If you see the first sequence, you know, we saw the eye exercises, you know, the Kandu Sadhakam, as they call it. It was a very silent sort of a sequence, but to do sound design for it was quite difficult. We were trying our best to do something, but it is completely to the credit of Godly. You know, he would use sound in a different way, like the rain. You know, the rain was a very in the first sequence, rain was like a major motive. So he would just use and also use mechanical sounds. Very mechanical sounds as part of the performance, you know, so that to create that ambience of the performance which doesn't complements it, and at the same time doesn't distract. So like different moods of rain, you know, like before the rain, or rain would just come, a wind would just blow, then silence, then again would blow, and then the rain would come, you know. So in that way we had designed the soundtrack of that film. And also the mixing, like Pramod Thomas did the mixing of the film. So we did the mix in prime focus, you know, where all these Bollywood big films get the mix. It's like a 5-star hotel, and we did it for, like, the final mix was for 2 or 3 hours, and it cost us a bomb, you know. But it was good in the sense that it gave that complete feel to that film. You know. It was a completely well designed, proper mix sort of a thing. So, so this is what like the film is about. Like, it is all, it's a lot about teamwork. Like Kapila Venu is the main star of this film. Same time, equally important is the contribution of the cinematographer Manish Madhavan and the editor Ranjit Kurur, you know, or the sound recordist Godly Koshi. So and the final mixing was done by Pramod Thomas. So all it was somehow we could all gel together and create a work of art.